Hey, how we doing? How we doing? One second, let me share this. Jump on and say hello in the chat if you're with me already. Are we here? Morning 333. Are we? Where is that video? There it is. How's the audio? Are we roboting? No, that sounds okay. Let me share it. Let me just share it, then we're with you. G'day, Mark. Emmy Plum. Martin. Deaky. Oh, you paid the entry fee. Good on you. That's awesome. Copy link. I'm going to post this in the Facebook group, and we will be away. Groups. Poseidon Racing. Link in the description. Just a quick one today, guys. I've actually got real work to do. I've been letting that slip, and I really need to catch up. So it'll be pretty quick today. Maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. And we're going to talk about, not financial advice, we're going to talk about what happens to Zed if ETH, or, if we get a bit of a downturn in the economy, or ETH crashes, or crypto crashes, or all that stuff. What happens to Zed if that happens? What happens to the value of our precious horses? Could be interesting. I don't really know, to be honest. And that's the truth. I don't really know, but we will come up with maybe some theories on what might happen. Raymond, you see me more than your roommate. I'm in your house every morning almost. Almost. Admission fee paid. If you haven't paid the admission, it's just hit the like button. And look, if the video is a bit crappy, at the end, just switch it to a down thumbs. Some people have been switching it, or just starting with a down thumbs. Maybe they have, I don't know. I don't know, to be honest, but we're getting a couple of down thumbs, and that's okay. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. No, M Plum. We love people adding comments and questions and content to the Facebook group. Please keep it up. Keeps it interesting. All right, who we got? We got 21 viewers. That's pretty good. We'll wait a couple of minutes and then we'll jump in. Hello, Main Mac. Dan, how are you? Thaddeus, good to see you again, mate. Dave, Jamie. Jamie's a regular. Adapt. Pierre. Good to see Randall. Kraken Whips. I like that name. Hi, Po. Hey, Vivi. Good to have you here. I know you had a bit of a tough drop experience, Vivi. I hope you're sort of feeling a little bit more settled within the space and can see a way forward and a way to get those horses that you really want in the long run. I know it must be super frustrating to be here and not be able to get a horse. For those that didn't get a horse the other day. Indiana Matthew, how you doing? Most of the viewers are from the States. I had a look at the stats, and most of the viewers aren't subscribed. We've only got about 30% subs, 70% non-subs. So if you're a non-sub, join up to YouTube. If you're not joined up, hit the sub button. You can join us a couple of times a week, and also get the lowdown on what's coming up. All right. Oh, you did okay, VV. Awesome. You ended up getting some. That's brilliant. Question, when's the next drop? I don't have my funds ready. I would say I don't know. I think breeding will be next. We expect an announcement on breeding today or tomorrow. And I think because the drop was a bit of a dud, a bit of a flop, a bit of a failure, if I'm honest, I think it might take them, they're going to have to review and improve, and they might have to scrap it and go back to the drawing board. And we know from last time when they scrapped it and went back to the drawing board, it took them about 6 weeks, couple of months almost, I think. So it could be anywhere from 2 weeks, if it's an easy fix, if they have an easy solution, out to 6 or 8 weeks if they don't. So, subscribed and liked. I appreciate it, guys. I really do. All right, let's get into it. Now, important this one today, not financial advice. It's just I guess, some theories on what might happen to the Zed Run horse prices if we get a flash crash or a long-term downtrend in crypto and even, in fact, the overall economy at the moment. As you probably know, if you're into crypto, everything's going up, right? Everything's going up. And look, the NFT space is 90% full of junk, I think. I had a look through it the other day, and in the coming days or weeks, we will do an NFT review. Look, I don't have a great deal of expertise in the overall space, but it doesn't take a lot of expertise to look through the majority of projects and see that most of them are junk. Okay, there's a lot of copycats, there's a lot of rip-offs, this sort of thing going on. So we'll have a look at that. I guess it kind of looks a little bit in the NFT space like what the early crypto markets were in 2017, when just any project was just going to the moon. Any and every project was going to the moon. But then we had that, 18 months, 2-year downtrend, and a lot of those projects went to zero. So I think a lot of the NFT projects might end up in a similar fate. I think a large majority of them will, but a few of the really, really strong ones will survive and get stronger for the experience, I believe. Now, Zed's interesting for the fact that it has a pretty incredible yield potential from either, and what I mean by yield is you can derive an income from your horses, either from racing, if you have a really good horse, if it's profitable, or breeding, or in the future there's going to be the DES token, it looks like. That's not been announced and we don't know where that exists on the roadmap, so that could be another form of yield coming from that. We might also be able to stake horses or lend horses or rent horses in the future. So there's all these different income streams coming from Zed, specifically from the horses. So you've got the breeding aspect, you've got the stud fees. You can literally have one male, drop it in the stud, and you might get stud fees if someone breeds with your horse. Or if you have a male and a female, you might breed them together and sell the offspring. Or if you just have a female, you might breed with horses within the stud and sell the offspring. So there's some pretty incredible potential yield returns that could materialise from Zed Run. Now, at the moment, it's all up in the air, and we don't really know exactly what that looks like, mainly because breeding's been down for so long, and it only really flashed back for those couple of days. So many of us didn't really get a chance to breed. We didn't really get a chance to breed. Raymond will laugh at the days when Poseidon had less than 1,000. Let's, celebrate 1,000 subs. Does that make me YouTube famous? It must do, right? 1,000's like heaps. Am I YouTube famous? Must be close. That's awesome. Now, Doofy's about 20 in front of me. Come on, let's track him down. It's getting closer. He was about 80 in front of me a couple of days ago. Now he's only 20. We're tracking him down. We overtake him. And then Poseidon racing YouTube to the moon. For sure. Martin says there's a game called So Rare, huge NFT-based soccer game. Okay. Where the prices are in Ethereum. The prices tend to track closely to the fiat currency, so I don't think an ETH Crash would matter too much. Yeah, well, kind of Zed. I got to check that game out. I didn't realise So Rare was a game. I sort of skimmed past it the other day and assumed that it was an art-based project. So I'll have to have a look at that. I haven't had a look at that one as yet. Now, that's kind of the interesting thing. And Zed, until the last drop, Zed was more so tracking USD as far as the drop prices were concerned. But I guess, in the secondary market, it more so tracks Ethereum. And so that's rather interesting. But now let's get into this. What it might look like. So let's assume that in the coming month or 2 months that ETH starts a downward ascent, okay? And let's assume that downward ascent isn't just a bounce back off and a return to higher highs. Let's assume that we go into the next phase of the bear market. Now, I don't know, and I probably don't think, I think we're more likely to have a bit of, not financial advice, I think we're more likely to have a downtrend, sideways action, and maybe a resumption at this point, but it could turn and go down. Look, if the whole economy turns to poo, and the shares crash, and basically everything crashes, and the dollar strengthens, then there will be a lot of downwards pressure, and that could potentially happen. But how does that affect the ZED market? And look, I don't know anything about financials. I'm just sort of making some assumptions here, so take it with a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt. But how would that affect ZED? Well, I think initially you would see some sort of liquidation event where you might have some stables that get themselves into some trouble and they need to liquidate some assets, and that might see an initial flood of horses into the market. Okay, and because there's a bit of uncertainty in there, maybe the buyers dry up a little bit, and that might have some downward pressure on the horses initially. But I think what might happen after that, and that could be a decent time to maybe purchase some Genesis horses that you've been looking for if that does eventuate. Because I think what might happen after that is once all the dust sort of settles and we get a little bit more comfortable with where we are, you know, within the economy and within the financial environment, then a lot of people are going to start to look for assets that have a yield potential. All right. So at the moment, it seems like everyone's just jumping on board crypto, whether it's got a yield or not, because it's got, you know, because everything's going up. You know, all the assets, all the coins are just increasing by a lot of money at the moment. So you're getting that percentage increase on your investment, and it doesn't really matter that much if you've got a return on that investment in the forms of a percentage yield. Okay, but then when the market flips over, and once the dust settles, you might get, as I said, you might get some bargains, some cheaper horses in the initial phase of that. And then once the dust settles, I would expect that a lot of savvy investors might start coming in, or those that have already been sort of sitting on the sidelines might start investing, because we think that the Zed Run horses are going to be able to return a certain percentage on your investment. Okay, so it's going to be really interesting going through. I'm actually looking forward to some degree to the next down cycle, because as we come into that down cycle, we've got these horses, these assets that can produce Ethereum. Okay, they can start building your ETH stack. So as we go through a year or maybe 18 months or 2 years of that downtrend, we can start building our ETH stack. And if you're long-term bullish on Ethereum, you can build up that Ethereum stack and not sell any and just hodl it, build it. And then when we hit the next upward cycle, you know, and that often results in rather hectic multiples of your investment, then that ETH stack's going to go up and up and up. Now, not financial advice, obviously, but that's going to be an interesting scenario. So keep your eye out on that. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that's probably something that might happen? That if we get that sort of downward pressure event where we get stocks crashing by 20-30% over a week or so, and crypto doing something similar, often crypto goes even harder downwards and then sort of settles in and maybe settles for a little while and then drops a little bit further and settles and drops a little bit further as we find wherever the ultimate bottom is going to be. Do you think once that dust settles that, you know, Zed's a good place to park your Ethereum? Maybe not all of it, but maybe a percentage of it for sure. Maybe a percentage of it, because of the fact that horses in this game essentially make Ethereum. You know, they make Ethereum through breeding, racing as well, if you've got a good enough racer, but mostly through breeding, which is really interesting. And it's one of the biggest draw cards of why I love this game so much. All right, let's have a look at questions here. I hope that makes sense. Not financial advice. Okay, we've got enough of that. We can probably turn that. Should we turn that off? Where are we? We can turn that off for now. Let's have a look at some questions. Let me know what you think at home as to whether Zed will be a good investment in a downwards pressure bear market style on the cryptocurrency. Yo, John, Willie. Hit the like button, guys. We got less than 50%. 17 people have paid the entry fee, and we got 40 people watching. Ollie says, hold and unrace Z9 Genesis. Or race it. Been pondering. Yeah, if you've only got the one horse, it may be safer to hold it unraced for the time being, because the worst thing to do, well, one of the things that can happen if you race it and you end up with a 30 or a 40 to 1-er, you know, a complete dud, then it's a very disappointing circumstance, isn't it? You know, at the moment you're sitting on an unraced, unscratched lotto ticket and you're like, this could be $1 million lotto ticket. You know, this could be a really valuable lotto ticket. Maybe not $1 million to be honest, but a really valuable lotto ticket. And that's really exciting. And then as soon as you put it in that one race and you get the odds of like 30 to 1, if you do, maybe you get $5 or $6 odds and you're like, yes, awesome. But that is in the minority, not the majority. The majority are getting 15, 20, 30, 40 to 1ers in the Z9 range. And that can be deflating, and it can also have an effect on the potential sales of offspring and these kind of things as well. Now, whether or not once you have a few seasons of breeding and it turns out your offspring are a bit ordinary as well, then people might start figuring out that the offspring are a bit ordinary and maybe they're not breeding with you. And then you just race it and confirm it if you like, or decide to sell it. But I think selling it could be risky too, because if you look at a horse like Breathless Edge, and if Breathless Edge was unraced right now, with the 20 odd offspring that he has, you'd probably think Breathless Edge is probably not that good based on the offspring. Okay, there's some okay ones in there and the grandkids are looking pretty sharp, but you probably wouldn't think he's the best, or one of the best studs, or sorry, one of the best racing stallions in the game. Arguably the best racing stallion, Zed Run, that is, in the game. So one of the issues with Breathless Edge is the quality of mares that he was breeding with before we picked him up. To be honest, they're not great. They're well below average in my opinion. So it will be interesting when we start breeding Breathless with some really select mares, whether that has a noticeable difference on the quality of offspring. Okay, so keep your eye on upcoming Breathless offspring and see if we can turn that ship around. Yeah, so what do you think about, will you be holding your horses through a potential 2-year downtrend in the NFT market and crypto market? Will you be using your horses to maybe slowly increase your stack of Ethereum? Are you bullish on Ethereum long term? Do you love the idea of Ethereum? Do you think it will survive? Do you think maybe one of the other ones will come through and surpass Ethereum? Could do. Another game could come in and surpass Zed Run, to be honest, couldn't it? That's also a chance. Connor wanted to thank me for the filter drop. So for others that weren't sure or didn't know what the filter tip was, I jumped on mid-drop last Saturday my time and did a quick 5-minute video just before I rushed off to soccer to coach my soccer team. And because there was a little hack that if you, rather than wait for all the horses to load together, if you changed the filters and narrowed them down so you were only loading like 20 or 30 horses, they would pop up really, really fast and you could jump in and start buying before everyone else sort of loaded up. And it proved really, really successful. And a lot of people that watched that video, the subscribers of this channel, mostly got horses. Mostly they got horses, which was incredible. M3 Plum Z is based on USD though, sort of, kind of. Not really. It's kind of a little bit of a hybrid between the two. And the reason I say that is, and it's been thrown into turmoil last drop, because recently the drops were only going up by 20 or 30% on USD value, and now it seems like the Zed team decided to keep the Ethereum value, give that more priority, which ended up jumping the horse prices by almost 100% across the board, or particularly up the top. So yeah, it's kind of not 100% based on ETH, and kind of not 100% based on USD. And for the most part, the Z1 have been tracking upwards on ETH value. So 6 months ago, you could get Z1s for 2 ETH pretty easily. And then they sort of went to 3 to 4. And then Zed had them at, I think, 6 and then 7. And then even though ETH has gone to the moon in the last 3-4 weeks, they've stayed around that 7 mark, which has actually doubled the USD valuation. So I would say if I had to choose, they were more closely linked to ETH than they are USD. Yeah, Pierre says it might be a great buying opportunity if we get that sort of, market crash across multiple sectors. And some people are going to get in trouble and need to liquidate some of their horses, which is going to add supply to the market. And if people are scared that Zed might fail through that period, then it could be a great buying opportunity, but it also comes with risk. There's no guarantee Zed will make it out the other side. I think they will, but there's no guarantee. Pierre, definitely looking forward to a correction. That's a great plan for the long term. Yeah, I think if you're long term bullish on Ethereum, then you can use Zed to stack your ETH as we go through that period. Not financial advice. I mean, this is a bit of a sort of just some financial thoughts, I suppose, around Zed Run and crypto, but I am by no means an expert. Yeah, Trevor, enjoying the videos. Thanks, mate. Need more crypto-based games to play besides Zed. I'm going to look into more, and this channel is going to it's going to remain 90% Zed Run, but we're going to throw in 1 in every 10 videos or something like that. We're going to look at the wider NFT market and do some first up reviews on NFT projects that I feel like have potential. There's a couple there. I had a little brief look the other day, and as I said, I kept stumbling across projects that I thought, oh geez, this looks like rubbish. I don't think this will survive. Now, it's only my opinion. Some of those rubbish ones probably will survive, and some of the ones that I think are red hot with a lot of potential will probably fail for one reason or another. Camillo, do I think Zed Run is more of a hobby or a proper source of income? It can be either. It can be either. I think it depends on how many horses, how good your strategy is, how good your network is, how good the quality of horses you have. I think as in a lot of things, I think in the early days of Zed, you can probably make a little bit of money on just about anything, like the NFT market, like the early crypto market. You can just probably make a little bit of money on just about everything. But once the breeding opens and the market floods, then the average Joe horse is probably going to be harder to sell. So you probably need something that's a little bit special, either a talented racer, a talented breeder. What I mean by talented breeder is a breeder that's producing talented racers. Or even if you're going for the collectability side of things, maybe you want a particularly special colour or a special name, that kind of thing. I don't think it's as easy as just buy some horses, breed some horses, sell some horses. At the moment, it probably is that easy, but in the long term, I'd be surprised if it stayed that easy. Raymond asks, what do I think of Dingaling getting a hold of 22% of all the Z1s in the game? 22%. Dingaling. Who's Dingaling? Is this a thing? Is this something I missed on the forum? Has he bought 22%? Have they bought? I'm assuming it was a he, but it may well be a she. Have they bought 22% of all the Z1s already. What's that? 2,220 Z1s. Really? Wow. I know Bob the Nailer's got about, he had about 140. I think he's down to about 100 or just under 100. Yeah, can you confirm that, Raymond? Has someone got 220 Z1s in one stable? Wow. Or am I misinterpreting that? Okay. Zed needs to be on wax. Yeah, I used to own some wax coin. I sold it. It's probably gone to the moon now, like everything else. Wax is another kind of NFT-based marketplace, isn't it? Similar to OpenSea. I'm sure it will get there eventually. Martin, pretty new to the game, but if it looks like it has potential, longevity, then I'll be looking to top up. Yeah, potentially me too, I think. Okay, Yaya says Dingaling owns 15 Z1s. Okay, so that's not 22% of the Z1s. That's 1.5%. I think 15's fine. You know, you're probably going to eventually see maybe one stable or two dominant stables that have maybe 100 or 150 or 200 even, eventually. I think, look, Bob the Nailer looks like he could be that person, but he might slowly sell down, or he might change his mind and start buying up. But look, I don't know that that's a tremendously bad thing. Obviously, more diversification is better. You certainly don't want necessarily one stable owning 50% or more of the Z1s, because it could really influence the market pricing of those offspring or those horses. Alashira, do I think the price of Z1 will rise or fall from here? Was lucky enough to buy one earlier, but very cautious now. I'm not sure. It's a tough one. I think where Zed pushed those Z1 prices to almost 40,000 the other day, or maybe it was 40,000, roughly around about there. I think they'd pushed it really right up to where the market was. So where it goes from here, I'm not sure. It's really tough to tell. It looks like it's pushing the boundary of the ceiling. If I had to suggest where we're at, I would suggest that the Z1 price is probably what they sold them at the other day, might be close to the current top of the Z1 market for unraced Z1s. But don't know, maybe it forms a new base level there and we start seeing Z1s going for, 75,000, 100K USD regularly, if we're talking on USD, because the ETH price hasn't really jumped that much, has it? I mean, the ETH amount per horse hasn't jumped a lot. It's sort of stayed around that. Maybe it has even jumped, did it? Was it about, I'm not sure, 8 or 10 ETH last drop, and this time about the same, around that 9 or 10 ETH. It's an interesting one. I'm not really sure. It seems to be pushing the limits. I mean, I bought a Z1 last drop, and I kind of had buyer's remorse and thought that was probably a silly thing to do. I probably should have been chasing 6, 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s more so than buying the 1s and the 2s that I did. And I think a few other people probably feel the same. But then there's other people that haven't bought any Z1s and they're still like trying to buy them. So it's super tough to tell. Like you, I was lucky to get those Z1s early. Trevor says, I'm new, but I feel like people value Z number too highly. Plenty of undervalued horses to buy cheap and race them to the proper value. Sure, absolutely. There's different niches. If everyone's valuing a certain niche really, really highly, then that means that other niches are probably undervalued, like you're saying. For sure, jump in there and do what you think. This game is all about the long-term vision. For me it is. What do you think are the important chess pieces in the game that are absolutely crucial to the game, that you need to have one or two of those, because as the game moves forward, everyone else will be like, whoa, they are so important, I need one of those. I think we got the ETH chat out of the way to some degree, and there's some other questions. Nick asks, how do I feel about breeding outside bloodlines? I think it's has just as much potential as breeding within bloodlines, to be honest. No one really knows. No one really knows what works at this point. So just try and see. You might stumble across something really, really awesome that works really well. I know a lot of people are thinking that crossing a NAC with a Zabo into a Finny into a Buterin and getting all 4 bloodlines is a good idea. It may well be. I'm more of the case of keeping the Nakamotos pure at the moment because I feel like that's my little niche. But then other people are going to do that cross bloodline, and I'm sure they're going to have success on some level. We don't know at what level just yet, but for sure. Martin, Facebook DM, I'll check it out. Dingaling is a top shot whale, came over to Zed in the last drop and bought a ton of NACs. I doubt that he's got 220, to be honest, but he might do. Okay, has 15 Z1s. Looks like he'll overtake me shortly. I think we've got 22 now between my brother and I. And that's probably our limit, I would suggest, until we see some bargains. Are the bargains coming at some stage in the next 6-12 months? Maybe. I bought 22% of the Z1s from this drop. That makes sense. I'm not sure how many Z1s were in this drop, but if you got 15, it looks like there was about 80. Jamie, there's a couple of actual billionaires that are playing Zed Run, so they could be the ones with multiple Z1s. I have had some conversations with some rather well-off chappies, or chapettes, and chapettes, is that a thing? Chappies, chapettes, it is now. Yeah, there's some big money flowing into this space. Let's see what that does to pricing and whatnot, and whether they're just sort of feeling around the edges, some of them at the moment. So we'll see what eventuates from there. 35 1s to 4s. Wow, that was a good pickup. Okay, yeah, he's certainly making himself one of the bigger stables in the game. Let's hope he's also a friendly, community-based person as well. I'm sure he is. If it's a he. I'm assuming it's a he. It could be a she. Spent 800k last drop. Good on them. Camillo, do I think the game doesn't have enough Genesis horses, meaning they'll run out of horses if not enough people resell them? They're going to run out of Genesis. I mean, that's kind of what all these early NFT projects do. They sell their Genesis, and then the breeding starts, and from there you buy the bred horses. And the Genesis, end up usually staying with some pretty strong hands. And I think that will happen with Zed, that most of the Genesis will probably not move around the market a great deal once they're all sold out, or at least after the first 12 months. BV, what average odds does a horse need to be considered one of the worth running daily for a profit? It's all about, is it winning? Is it winning and making money, really? I mean, I would expect a profitable horse would need odds of around 7, 8 or 9s dollars. But then you also got to check the win percentage to make sure it's winning at those specific distances. You'll find some horses might have a 30% win rate at, say, 1200, but then at 1400 they might have similar odds, but they win like nothing. So you've got to decide, is that 1400 just a bit of a glitch and it's going to come good eventually? Or is it a sort of a game strategy where you just leave 1400 alone and race purely 1200 because that's where you're winning? I don't know what the wait time on races is, Jamie. It was about 12 or so hours yesterday. It's probably similar. George, we're getting to the end of this one. We'll wrap it up shortly. Hit the like button. 51 viewers, 29 likes. We can do better than that. Or the sub button, either or both. 2 or 3 hours, says Trevor, for the wait time on racing. That's not too bad. George says, how many drops of Genesis do you believe are left? I think there's 1 or 2. Probably 1 or 2. I believe, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I believe they dropped about 7,000. That's going to leave us with about 15,000 left. And I think, given that we went from dropping sort of 500 horses to 2,000 horses to 7,000 horses, I think it's safe to assume that we might be either dropping all the rest, roughly. Now, I think they probably won't drop all in one go. They'll probably drop like, let's say 13,000 and basically call that the end of the day. And then the remaining 2,000 will be for fixing up, I guess, maybe any glitches that might happen, and also for promotional purposes for future partnerships. So that will leave them with around, I think there's about 250 Z1s to Z4s left or something like that in total. I'm assuming they're for future partnerships, promos, and maybe even giveaways. And then I would assume that from the 5s to 10s, there would be left about 1 or 2,000 for the same purpose, for promotional and future partnerships, giveaways, those kind of things. But once we get to those levels, I wouldn't expect to see any more public drops. So if I had to guess, I would say 1 is the most likely, 2 it would be the next most likely, and 3 more drops is a real long shot. I would doubt they split what's remaining into 3 small drops. I would assume they would either go for 1 big one or 2 similar sized ones to what we just had. All right, everyone, we might wrap it there. As I said, I've got some work, some real actual work to do. I'd rather just be doing this content more, and I will sort of angle for that line in the next coming couple of months. But I've got to get and do some more actual work, which doesn't thrill me, but you know, it's got to be done, doesn't it? Life gets in the way. All right. Hey, Alex, how you doing? All right. Perfect. Let's wrap it up there, and I'll hopefully come back tomorrow or the next day with another Zed Run update. We might look at, or we might even look at NFTs shortly. I've got a list of things that I want to touch with you. The other one that I want to talk about as well, again, another recap on, are males more valuable than females in the Genesis horses, or are the females more valuable and more useful than the males? That could be really, really interesting for a lot of you that haven't listened to that debate or my angle on that topic before. So make sure you hit the sub button for that one. We'll come back either tomorrow or the next day and do something else. So until then, bye for now.